Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing The Fantastic Four: First Steps. This was directed by Matt Shakman. Oh, right now I have MCU hangover more than I ever thought I would have, and I think a lot of people do. Nothing that they have made in the last few years has even remotely lit my fire. So obviously I was not looking forward to this film, despite the title First Steps, meaning that they're trying to shift the MCU in a new direction, hence the whole baby birth metaphor here that is right out of the movie The Incredibles, essentially. So yes, this is their attempt at a facelift. But to my surprise, I had fun with this film. I liked it. It was refreshing in all of the ways that I think I've struggled with recent entries to MCU, like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I think that's what it's called, or the most recent Superman, as an example. I thought this was kind of charming. I thought it was sweet. It was measured. I was invested in the story, and thank God they did not try to tackle too much. It avoids any of those like multiverse, universe hopping side plots, all of that nonsense, and it brings it a little bit more back to baseline. To me, this is a lot closer to what I wish the new Superman had been. That film, I think, in a similar way, tries to repackage Superman in a way that brings it back to grassroots, but I think, ironically, suffered more from an identity crisis. I felt like that tried to tackle way too much thematically and otherwise that it ended up buckling almost under the weight of itself. But no, Fantastic Four, by contrast, is a lot more focused, and I think it has better instincts so far as knowing when to shave off the noise. The characters in this movie, they make choices, and there's major stakes attached to those choices, and they make sense as emotional objectives. And I know all that I'm saying, this is just basic screenwriting 101, but the bar has been significantly lowered so far as the MCU is concerned when it comes to just writing a solid story. Now, is Fantastic Four too simplistic in its ideas and in its narrative? Yes, and I do think that simplicity can be great, especially in a movie like this, but not at the expense of suspense. You don't want it to be passive or too soft. And so we do run into that issue. This movie feels like a house where all of the child safety locks are left on everywhere, but it's a bunch of adults. It's not necessary. But again, it's cohesive and balanced where so many of these movies are not. One of the things that makes this movie a lot more palatable and fun is the aesthetic, because obviously it is taking place in the 1960s, so there's a lot more detail and a lot more thought put into everything. But it's a bolder way to sink your hooks into the audience. And this movie, it did feel a lot like those old 1960s sitcoms like Lost in Space or Star Trek. Absolutely, it felt like the Jetsons. Honoring that camp and that charm, it is very exaggerated. So it's more like a cartoon, pulpy, idealized version of what the 1960s was. And again, this is what I think allows the movie to remain more in focus thematically. It stays in its lane where the dilemmas do feel accessible to us. The first scene of this film, I think it sets the pathos in motion effortlessly. We have Sue Storm, and she is married to Mr. Fantastic, and suddenly she realizes here that she's pregnant. And that's all you need. Is it some great showstopper of an opening? Hell no, but it gives a great sense of who these characters are to each other. There is a lot of intelligence and respect between the couple. There's great chemistry, mature chemistry here between Pascal and Kirby, and it feels like it doesn't belong in a superhero film, which I like. All of the acting is fantastic in this. I liked the humor as well. It's a lot more peripheral than we're used to in a lot of these movies, which is, again, so refreshing because it doesn't feel like we're using literal Looney Tune gags in the middle of something super dramatic. I love Vanessa Kirby. I think she has, a real movie star presence to her. Just that dark, kind of sexy, smoky voice that she has reminds me of Lauren Bacall. No complaints there. And Pascal, obviously, we're, experiencing a lot of him lately, but, I didn't mind him in this role. I think he works as the straight man, as at the center, who clearly has a little bit of anxiety and sensitivities that he's trying to keep at bay to protect his wife. The standouts for me, however, were Joseph Quinn, who plays the Human Torch, and then The Thing, Ebon Moss-Bachrach. And they brought kind of that character actor sensibility. Both of them hold their own beautifully on screen in such a big Hollywood movie. They have the humor, the charm, the pathos, everything you could want. Though I wish we could have built more on their stories. I would have liked to see more of them, and I would have liked to see their dilemmas more integrated into the main one, just, for color and for stakes. Bachrach, as an example. I would have loved to see, more of that section with him and Natasha Lyonne blossom into something. I just thought there was a lot of potential there. But that's the problem. Even though this film is trying to appeal to humanity a bit more, I think it's still too singular in its pursuit, too one-dimensional. All these characters and their interactions, they start to trickle into this singular funnel. And then that's what causes it to lack the edge and the freshness going into the third act. Yes, I did say that I want things to be a little bit more simple when it comes to big blockbuster movies. I think less is more is often better narratively in those situations, just not this simplistic. I think, if you read this on paper, just by itself, it feels like a lame throwaway like 1960s sci-fi episode of something, just with a lot better production, obviously. I wanted a better grasp on the villain as an idea without losing a lot of that mystique. So, getting a better sense of his motivations. And the same with the Julia Garner character. I felt like we needed a lot more of her. To me, she was a key in what could have made the film more seductive and brought it into a more modern territory where the emotional lines could have gotten blurry. But her trajectory as a character is too convenient, too telegraphed for my taste, and somebody like Garner, I think she deserves a lot better. As does Ralph Ineson as Galactus. He is the villain, obviously. But so far as the look of him, the aesthetic and everything, it's quite impressive. It's more artful, I think, compared to, more recent superhero villain attempts. And the imagery sometimes might even stay with me. I think, just looking at it, you get a sense of the size, but so far as when he moves and when it comes to the sound design, the special effects, it's the heft that you don't feel. When he takes down those buildings, it's like you want to feel the tremors, or when he plants his feet in the earth, I don't know, you want to be able to look up and sense the scope of everything. It's like when you look at Empire Strikes Back, the way you're like, whoa, look at those Imperial walkers. That's what I miss in these newer movies. The filmmaking just doesn't match the ambition. It comes out more as serviceable, and I want it to be wow. This feels more like it was produced at times for primetime television and not the cinema. Because often when I talk about cinema, we're talking about the way we marinate in these action sequences. We marinate in set pieces. We orient our audience in the world. But here it's more like, again, we're just kind of skipping around. We have one big dramatic moment and boom, suddenly we're in the apartment. It's like there's no clever segue, transition. To me, it is the emotional tenacity or the attempt at tenacity that is the strongest point of this film. But anytime this film really goes more into a vulnerable center, it's like they have to water it down with all that CGI prowess. I understand it. It's a typical formula, but I wish it had a little bit more edge there, more creativity in the writing. I don't see this as some massive makeover transformation for the MCU. I just see some clear cosmetic changes. I still don't have a lot of hope for them though. They're still sinking quickly, in my opinion. It's like you can see the signs of decay, like rotting at the center of it, and yet this is a more spirited attempt than, say, Thunderbolts. This one disguises its flaws with a lot more panache, and it disguises the attempt to push a lot of those corporate tie-ins and such with some charm. There is spark here. I just don't think it's enough to revive a sagging subgenre. But again, this was a sigh of relief in all of the calamity for me. Again, it's such a low bar, but this is easily the best superhero film I have seen of the year, and I think it's honestly one of the better summer movies I have seen this year. So yeah, I say see this. Check out a matinee, even a full price. Why not? But that is my review, and thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commissioned portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that's something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below, and if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch my videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.